This is the illusion of the thumbnail. This is the reality. Jackson! Aloha and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe and press the notification bell. My name is Marilyn Maya. I'm the baby boomer booktuber, and last time I had so many books that I had to make it a part 2 of a library haul, a bookshelf haul, a continued reads, and anticipated reads. I do have a 2020 best of books that I read, but I started this channel in August on my 70th birthday, so I didn't have a chance to read as many books as I wanted to, and the books that I read weren't really the kind of books that I usually read, and so I was a little disappointed. I was trying to find books more what BookTube suggests or recommends, and I guess I have to really go with what I like to read. I'm a mood reader, and I love nonfiction, and I love mysteries and some thrillers, but I also love classics. So I do read widely, but the books that I picked up weren't necessarily my favorite books, but I do have 5 favorites, which I will go into in my next video. Right now I'm going to talk about what I'm reading and what I finished reading. And this is Josephine Tey's The Daughter of Time. This was written quite a while ago, and it's about Richard III. Did he really kill the princes in the tower? Well, Inspector Alan Grant has a broken leg, and he's in the hospital, and it's a very cute story. I haven't finished reading it yet, so I haven't made up my mind if Richard III really did it. But this is one of Josephine Tey's most beloved works, and I'm looking forward to reading it, even though the story itself didn't grab me. It's not a traditional mystery, but it's very intellectual, so I'm hoping to finish this very soon. A book that I just talked about in my last video was 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff, and I'm going to give this a second read and annotate it, because all of the books that she sent for, she was a New York writer. I think she passed away a few years ago. She wrote a lot of books, and she was also a television writer, and it talks about in the book how she wrote for the Ellery Queen series on TV, and I was brought up in the golden age of TV, so I kind of remember Ellery Queen. And what was really funny about it, I just remembered this after I talked about it, was that she was a very intellectual reader. I mean, her tastes were way above my head, but she used a lot of the old stories, that she was reading, or nonfiction, because she was mainly a nonfiction reader. She said she didn't like stories. She liked the truth, and she would turn them into series and for modern TV, which I thought was brilliant. But anyway, I want to write down some of the books that she sent for to the bookseller, who was Frank at 84 Charing Cross Road. Some of them might not be my cup of tea, but some of them might be. So like I said, I want to give this another try. I just finished Cards on the Table by Agatha Christie. Now, this was a favorite novel, a favorite Agatha Christie, of Mara, of books like Woe. And I had read I thought all, but not all, of Agatha Christie's books when I was in my 20s. And so I did read this book. And I have to say, this also needs a second read. I know right away, I'll say this, without going into any spoilers, this won't be my favorite Agatha Christie book. It was, the premise was very interesting, and the ending could have needed a little work. But what bothered me about it, and this was 1936, so you have to take that in mind, but there's a lot of problematic things about this book, about foreign people, about Jews, about just a lot of prejudice, and it's true. I mean, this was the way it was right before the war, and you can really see what Great Britain, if Great Britain was like this, imagine what, you know, Germany was like, or other countries. But it's a brilliant book, but it's not going to be my favorite. In fact, I am going to reread all of Agatha Christie's books in 2021. Well, maybe not all of them. She did write, she has a lot of books. And I had an impulsive buy of two of a favorite that another booktuber recommended, and I'll have her information down. She's also a vintage person. She buys vintage stuff, and it was very interesting to read her books and vintage. But anyway, I'll have that information down in the description box. So this is Cards on the Table. I want to read it again to make sure that my feelings are the same. And after I read that, I went into Out of the Easy by Ruta Sepetys, who wrote one of my favorite books, Between Shades of Grey. I said the other day that it made me feel good. And this is about, well, Shades of Grey was a very violent book, and it was about how the Baltic people suffered under the former Soviet Union, and there was a lot of very bad stuff in it. But because of the story that she laid out, not in this book, but in Shades of Grey, Between Shades of Grey, made it a wonderful, wonderful book. And I can't say the same thing about Out of the Easy, though I am not finished with it. It's more typically a young adult book than I think Between Shades of Grey was, though they're both young adult to adult books. And I'll read you a little of the synopsis, but I did it the last time. So basically, it's 1950, and this is the French Quarter of Louisiana, of New Orleans, or New Orleans as they say. And the protagonist is Josie Moraine, and her mother is a prostitute, and she works in a brothel. And the madam of the brothel, Willie, takes a liking to her since she was small. But what I don't like about it so far, and I haven't really finished it yet, is that the main characters, even the main character Josie, is not drawn as well as her other character was in her other books. And the mother is also almost a caricature of bad mothers, and Willie is the house in the madam who has a lot of money and tries to keep her girls in line. And then the prostitutes are, there's a hooker with a heart of gold and one who's not so. But it's a little bit, there's not enough nuance in the story so far, let's say that. But I'm hoping that there's a mystery in it, and I'm hoping that I'm feeling differently about it later. All right, I think that's all of what I'm in the process of reading. Now I'll talk about my anticipated reads, and also another subgenre of nonfiction that I've been reading for a reason. And I talked about Shirley of Charlotte Bronte, and I might be having, or I am having, a operation, and this is, even with my broken glasses, I can't really, this is a chunkster, so I know I'm going to like this book, but I can't give it the attention it deserves at the moment. So that's one. And then I said that I'm not going to do thrillers too much anymore, but I bought this brand new, and this has been on my shelf for a while, and I want to be brave enough to do it. The Good Daughter by Karin Slaughter. And I saw an article about her in the Writer's Digest, and it made me want to read her. So, two girls are forced into the woods at gunpoint. One runs for her life, one is left behind. And I heard it's pretty violent, but it's not violence in thrillers that makes me not like them. It's playing with the reader in a gratuitous way, or gratuitous violence that has nothing to do with the plot. So I am going to read this year. Now to one of my most anticipated reads. It's called Turbulent Souls, A Catholic Son's Return to His Jewish Family by Stephen J Dubner. And I had this on my shelf, so I said that this is going to be some shelf reading. And I read a little bit of it, but then I put it down. So this is about the youngest of 8 children. Stephen J Dubner grew up in a family that was industrious, rambunctious, and above all Catholic. His parents were true believers, their faith extending to every corner of their lives, but they were also Jewish converts. During World War II, a beautiful ballerina named Florence Greenglass and a lonely soldier named Saul Dubner fell in love, first with Catholicism, and then with each other. The new life they created left no room for the old, and by the time Stephen was born, their pasts had been locked away. Only when he reached his 20s did he discover his parents' extraordinary story, a story full of bitter estrangements, hard-fought triumphs, and deep secrets. Ethel Rosenberg, executed as an atomic spy in '53, was his mother's first cousin. In excavating the story, he felt the tug of the religion his parents had abandoned and began to pursue it as vigorously as they had pursued their adopted faith. Along the way, he met dozens of his own Jewish relatives, traveled to his grandparents' shtetl in Poland, wrestled with the implications of the Holocaust, recreated the life of his late father, and saw his relationship with his mother curdle so thoroughly that it would fall to the Archbishop of New York, John Cardinal O'Connor, to help broker a peace. Now, this is some book. I am so excited about reading this book. As a person who had a Jewish mother, and that makes me Jewish. My father was also Puerto Rican, and she defied her faith and married a Puerto Rican, and we were brought up on pork chops and rice and beans, basically, along with a little bit of Judaism sprinkled in. But I've never read a book about Jews who converted to be Catholics and then turned back to Judaism. But though it is happening, I heard in Spain, where a lot of people that were hidden Jews from the Inquisition are finding out about their Jewish roots and returning to Judaism. But this is an American story, and a New York story, so I'm very excited about reading it. The last book of my anticipated reads, and I'm sure my TBR is going to be growing and growing, is from my shelf too, and it's called Seabiscuit, an American Legend. And I got this book, and I don't know how I got it, but Seabiscuit was, he was a horse, a cultural icon, a world-class athlete, a champion who triumphed with terrible handicaps to become a legend on the racetrack. No other racehorse has rivaled Seabiscuit's fame or his sway over the nation's imagination. Now, Laura Hillenbrand unfolds the spellbinding story of this marvelous animal the world he lived in, and the men who staked their lives and fortunes on his dazzling career. A riveting tale of grit, grace, luck, and an underdog's stubborn determination. Seabiscuit is an American classic. Now, the only horse racing that I really enjoy is the Kentucky Derby. And if I'm not mistaken, and I will, please let me know, I forgot the name of the horse who also won all 3 of his races, as well as Seabiscuit. But, so that's my anticipated reads. Now, when I was ending my last video, I was talking about that I have a condition that is called peripheral artery disease, and books have always been my go-to for any problem in my life. If I had a boyfriend who wasn't treating me well, if I wanted to be popular in high school, it was the library. I went to the library, and more often than not, I would find an answer. So this is no different. And I have some, and I'm going to go through these fast, a haul of books about getting rid of heart disease. And the first one is Reversing Heart Disease, Dean Ornish's program for reversing heart disease. And I talked about this, that I was very surprised how emotional I got reading this book, because he also suffered from mental illness as a young graduate and going into medical school. And he's just a wonderful person. What he did for reversing people's heart disease and giving them a good life. Then, of course, I went and got his new book. Well, I don't know how new it is, but it's called Undo It: How Simple Lifestyle Changes Can Reverse Most Chronic Diseases. And this is not only about heart disease, but it goes into guide. It really is a wonderful book. It's not a book you read in a linear fashion, but heart disease is only like a little part of it. He really goes into yoga and meditation, and how he became very more of a mind-body person before it was even popular. The next book is a doctor who did the same thing as Dean Ornish, except in Hawaii. And his name is Terry Shintani, and it's called The Hawaii Diet. Eat all you want, control your cholesterol and blood sugar, lose up to 30 pounds in 3 weeks. And I had the pleasure of being his patient for a while. So he wrote to Marilyn, I wish you the best of health and the Lord's blessing always. Terry Shintani, 2012. So I have to admit, I've looked at some of the recipes, but I haven't read it as thoroughly as now I want to. And he's the first one who told me to lose weight. And I wasn't even that overweight, but he said you should be in the 120s, and I was in the late 130s at the time. But at one time, I was almost 200 pounds at 5 feet. So I didn't really pay attention to him, which I should have. And then my physical therapist told me to buy this book. It's called How Not to Die. Isn't that great? Wouldn't we all love not to die? It's by Michael Krager, MD. And he has a website called nutritionfacts.org that I haven't looked at yet. But he's not as strict as some of the other people who talk about what to leave out of your diet or put in. And he seems like a very interesting person. His grandmother was one of Dr. Nathan Pritikin's first patients or first guests at his health resort in Florida. And she ended up, she was like at death's door. And she was in there was a 60-minute interview which she was in, and she lived 30 years more, so there's hope for me. And the last book is The End of Heart Disease by Joel Fuhrman, MD. So basically, he wants you to eat a lot of nuts and seeds, and some of the others don't. So, nutrition is a very interesting science. And what I'm learning is doctors aren't really trained in nutrition. So a lot of the diets that were going around were by doctors, like Dr. Atkins, and they really didn't know everything that they're beginning to know more now. So basically, I'm on a plant-based diet, and I'm eating a lot of oats. My boyfriend Jackson says that I'm eating like a horse. Oats. Well, I guess Seabiscuit did pretty good on oats, so maybe it'll work for me. I want to end with one of my favorite books of 2020, even though it's been on my shelf for a long time. I didn't pick it up because I had been disappointed in Louise L. Hay, who specialized in, her books were more about anxiety than anything else, which I suffer from. But this Meditations to Heal Your Life has been really helpful. And I want to end with a page about nutrition, since I'm talking about a lot of books about nutrition. I nourish myself with love. I care enough for myself to nourish myself with all the best that life has to offer. I learn about nutrition because I am a precious being, and I want to take the best care of me that I can. My body is special and different from all other bodies. Therefore, I learn the things that my body assimilates the best. I learn everything I can about food and beverages. I pay attention to what I eat and drink, and I notice if some food or beverage doesn't seem to agree with me. If I have something to eat and an hour later I fall asleep, I realize that that particular food is not good for my body at this time. I search out the books that give me good energy. I bless all my foods with love and gratitude. I am nurtured and nourished. I feel healthy, happy, and great. And that's what I wish for all of you. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my mishmash or hodgepodge of reads, everything books. And please come back and see me again. And I'm sure that I will have more books for you, because I'm a voracious reader, as all of us are on Bookish YouTube. So until we meet again, my friends, aloha.